we good? All right, good evening. It is Tuesday, September 14th. It is 6:30. We have a full dais, and I am calling this meeting to order. We have a really neat pleasure this evening to be treated with Hannibal, and Callahan Winkler is going to be playing for us. But first, we are going to stand together as a community and say the pledges to both the flags. If you'll please rise. Thank you. If you will take your seat, I will turn things over to Hannibal and Callahan, and they will be treating us. Do you want to say anything about what you're going to play for us?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor, and everyone on the council. In this time, a lot of the spirits of the people are down, and so the Spirit said to me, go and play for the people, because nothing is as good for the music other than good barbecue than music. And so on drums, I have one of my babies from Bastrop High School, Callahan Winkler. We're gonna play a piece for you. But this first piece we're gonna play is called Hymn for the World. And while walking and meditating, I was given to write a song, a hymn in honor of humanity, not a hymn for a state or a country or a school, but a hymn for all human beings. And that is the origin of this piece, entitled Hymn for the World. I'll say the words. It says, from the swaying bridge of human divide. And I'm in pretty good singing voice, so I'll sing it so you get a tone of it. Probably Callahan's children will be in the stand singing this song. I'll be gone by then. From the swaying bridge of human divide, I stretch my hand to you, no longer to fear the river of truth. What you suffer, I will too. But for grace we live from hour to hour. At mercy's gate we lay our cause. To your fate my thread is woven. To your cry I shall give pause. From the deep well of our sacred lives, from the fields of our songs and bread, let us pour life into each other, and in the pouring so be fed. The living soul no wall can contain, true wealth in hate cannot lie. The earth is the mother of us all, our Father, the endless sky. Let ring the bells of freedom, in each our hands they rest. Hatred requires so little. Love, love, love the greater test.
Thank you, Hannibal. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please remain standing, Robert Wellington will be giving our invocation tonight. Mr. Wellington?
Would you bow with me in prayer? Oh, Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening in the name of Jesus to thank you for your loving kindness and your tender mercies, to thank you for sparing our lives and for giving us another chance. I pray, oh Heavenly Father, that you will forgive us of our wrongs as we forgive those who have wronged us. I pray that you will continue to watch over our nation and its leadership, that you will give them the wisdom and the knowledge that they need by the power of the Holy Spirit to lead and guide our nation. I pray, oh Heavenly Father, that you would bless the leadership of our city, the men and women that put on the badge every day and risk their lives to serve and protect us. Bless them and their families with your love and protection in the name of Jesus. Oh Heavenly Father, as we remember 20 years ago that we were attacked, that our enemies did not see red Americans or blue Americans, black or white, rich or poor. They simply saw us all as Americans because that's who and what we are. Belonging to one great nation, one great state, and one great city. I pray, oh Heavenly Father, that when the meeting is over, that we will remember that we are friends, neighbors, church members, and members of the Bastrop community. I pray in Jesus' name and by the power of the Holy Spirit that you will grant it to be so. Amen.
You may be seated. Thank you so much, Chaplain Wellington. Appreciate it. And thank you, Lacumbe family, and thank you, Callahan, for sharing your talents. Let's give them another round of applause. Part of what makes Bastrop such a great place to live is all of the wonderful and talented people that we have, and it's so nice when they want to share those talents with all of us. We appreciate that. All right, Council, we're moving on to item 4A, to my mayor's report. I had just a couple of things. You guys may have noticed that eastbound is a little different than it used to be in 71. How many of you were at Tahitian before you realized you had, oh yeah, there we are. I think almost everybody's done that. So be careful. It's gonna, I hate to say this, it's gonna be worse before it gets better. We've still got some construction ahead of us, and I would just encourage folks to be careful when you're in that area, and there'll be traffic patterns changing. So just make sure you're aware of your surroundings. I also want to mention, and I may be stealing the city manager's thunder, but one of the things I was able to do since the last council meeting, and I don't have a picture of it because the fire department asked me to remove all evidence, but there was a kickball game between the police and fire. According to the fire, it was for fun and there was no score. According to Chief Nagy, there very definitely was a score, and he would be willing to share that with you. So it was great to see them and their families, our firefighters and our police out there together. So that was a lot of fun. And I want to remind folks, I do have this in my calendar later, that the Bastrop Music Festival, Hannibal was a great kickoff for that. The Bastrop Music Festival is September 23rd through the 26th. And I have one other date to share. Colin, we can go on past Mayor's report to that one. On September 18th from 9 to noon, household hazardous waste. You can drop off that hazardous waste that we please do not want you to put in the trash can that gets picked up weekly. And if you find yourself in need of any paint, one of the most preferred paint colors is Bastrop Beige. And that's what happens when we mix together all the paint that people bring. And Bastrop Beige is a great primer. You can put it on a shed. It's free paint. They mix it there on site. So if you check out the household hazardous waste, we try to do that twice a year. And the next time we're doing it is September 18th from 9 to noon. It's in Smithville. And the website will give you some more information. So, Colin, if you go to the next page, this is a few things that I did since our last council meeting through September 6th. The upper left-hand corner, Carts was the guest speaker at the Chamber Luncheon, and they did a great job. That's Dana and Mr. Dave Marsh. We were glad to have them there with us. And if you go just to the right, I was honored to attend the Perseverance in the Pines. It's hard to believe that it has been 10 years, but it very much has. No celebration in Bastrop is complete without cookies, so there was some really cool pine tree cookies. That's showing, that was a picture of Sheila Lowe when she was making a speech. She did an excellent job of pulling that event together. And then this is Miss Garcia, and she designed, they are the Bastrop County Long-Term Recovery Team is selling some challenge medallions, and they had over 600 school kids donate, kind of nominate what they wanted on the challenge coin, and Miss Garcia is holding up the side of the coin that she designed, and the cookies matched the coin. It was a very cool thing, and she's standing there with her father, Juan Garcia, and she was really honored to be chosen to be on the challenge coin. Colin, if you keep going to the right, there's a guy that some of you may recognize to my left, to my right from where you're sitting, and the Farm Street Opry, there's several of us that take turns hosting that and serving as the MC, and Mayor Pro Tem Nelson found his cowboy hat and his, I guess, is that a cowboy vest, or you can describe that when it's your turn, but there he is. He and I were there with Kathy Danielson before the show got started, and that's a picture of some folks line dancing. If you have not attended, I would encourage you to attend. It's the first Thursday of the month, and it is a lot of fun. Colin, we're going to the bottom left. I was asked to attend Rotary, and the Rotary gave out 2 scholarships. This was such a cool thing. Alex Garrison is standing there in the middle, and he was a recipient of a scholarship, and the scholarship was paid to TSTC to cover his hours at TSTC, and he's learning to be a welder. And turns out he has a really good talent for being a TIG welder. And then the young man that's on the far left standing to Superintendent Mr. Edwards is Garrison Burrell, and he is learning how to do computer-aided design drafting and taught himself some CAD skills and is planning on going to TSTC. So it was very cool for Rotary to donate that. The guy between Alex and I is the director for TSTC, and we're talking about trying to get them here for a campus, and there'll be some new news coming on that. But technical school is a fantastic option for a lot of our kids. You can get a really good paying job and not have really big student loans. And then to the right of that, unfortunately, Councilmember Rogers wasn't able to join us because she has a full-time job and business that she owns that sometimes takes a priority. You can see, I'm not sure, well, I guess Curtis Hancock allowed the city manager to don the backhoe, but he was pretty happy to be up on that backhoe, and we had the. Yeah, they said Curtis had the keys, though. It was our ceremonial planting of the pine trees that we did in honor of the 10-year anniversary of the fire, and those trees were planted at Mayfest, and you can see that we were joined by Rebecca Gleason and Curtis Hancock and Chief Nagy and council members, so it was a fun morning and enjoyed having everybody together. Colin, you can go to the next page. These are the things I've done, getting ready for tonight. And I want to mention the Employee Appreciation Lunch was just a great event. I'll have a picture for that at our next council meeting. And thanks to Mayor Pro Tem Nelson, Councilmember Jackson, and Councilmember Crouch, who also attended the Employee Appreciation Lunch. And then on the last page, Carrie Fossler will be so happy to see that the Bird Coalition meeting is on my calendar. I'm not sure if I'm going to make the meeting, but it is on the calendar. There is a CMIT Solutions ribbon cutting, and the cook-off is being sponsored by First Mortgage, First Title Mortgage, and Austin Title, and have been asked to be a judge at the chili cook-off, so I'm pretty fired up about that. I also wanted to let folks know it's not a mistake. The next time council is meeting, it is in 1 week. You're used to us meeting on the second and fourth Tuesday, but the legislation has told us we have to do certain things around budget in certain time frames. So we will not be meeting on September 28th, but we will be meeting 1 short week from now on Tuesday, September 21st. And with that, Mayor Pro Tem Nelson, what would you like to share with us this evening?
Just clarification, I'd have to find my cowboy hat. I knew exactly where it was at. And it's not so much a cowboy vest as it's called a vest.
Thank you.
And I truly enjoyed emceeing that event. It was very strange. I think there was more people there from out of town than there were from in town, and it was well attended. I would encourage, and to repeat what the mayor said, y'all really need to come out to that. Some really good acts. And I want to commend Kathy and her staff for really being good hosts for that. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
All right, Councilmember Rogers.
The only thing I have, Mayor, is I did sign up for the recreation because you made a challenge, so
I
just letting
did
you know I
challenge
did it.
council, and it's interesting that my understanding
to
is,
one class.
as of today, myself, Mayor Pro Tem Nelson, and Councilmember Rogers are all members of the recreation program. I'm just mentioning it. Y'all can do what you
Can I get credit for
want.
my husband too, because I did a family?
Oh, you get double credit because your husband too. All right.
So
And I
does
took him
it
to the
show
class
yet?
with me. I did take him to the
Cool.
class with me.
There you
So
go.
That's,
All right.
that's the best news I got.
Anything else for us? That's it? Councilmember Peterson, how are you doing this evening?
Thanks, Mayor. Doing well. Well, better than I have in the last couple of weeks, but I'm doing better. And all I want to say is I feel blessed for being able to hang out with such a great group of people on this city council. And I thank you guys for putting up with me. And I enjoy hanging out with y'all. And I want to tell everybody else to take care of yourselves and each other. And everybody be blessed. That's all I have.
Amen. Mr. Peterson always brings wise counsel, and it's an honor to serve with you. Councilmember Crouch, what do you have for us this evening?
Some of the things, same things you did, or one of the same things that you did was a tree planting at Mayfest. That was a nice event to remember back for the 10 years. And I actually lived in Salt Lake City back then, and we were watching it on the internet. And then came a few months afterwards, and it just looked like Mars here. So the recovery has been great to watch the state park from the little saplings that were planted, and they're probably 20 feet tall now, to watch that grow back. The city manager and Curtis Hancock and I met at the rodeo arena with a potential leasee for that. So that was good to see if we could maybe get some more use out of the rodeo arena. I'm still checking on signage for the highway from TxDOT to see if we can direct some more people downtown. The best sign option that I thought we could maybe potentially get was for cities under 5,000 people. So we have to move to a different signage program maybe. And then I'd looked in the past at a sister city international for Bastrop, and what the sister city is a city in Europe that would be your sister city, and you would correspond back and forth and do things with, and I really wanted to see about Baron de Bastrop and maybe get a sister city where he was from, but he was kicked out of his country, so I'm not sure if that would be such a great person to do. So I'll keep looking for another city for us to maybe do that, and that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Crouch. Councilmember Jackson?
Well, just tying into some of the things that you mentioned, some things that I, in addition, did. Well, first of all, I'll be excited also to say that if you missed the event at the Convention Center, I'll be hosting and emceeing in December. So I guess I'll have to find my hat and pull it out, and I don't think I'll have a vest that fits. But anyway, come out to that event over at the Convention Center. The tree planting was fun, and in memory of the fire and everything, and it just reminded me of what was going on 10 years ago when that happened to me. And being the survivor of 2 fires previous to that, I was hoping not to be in a third one, and God blessed me not to be in it. But twice I was burned out completely, and it wasn't during that 10 years ago. It was when I was much younger. So that was a sombering, I guess, memory for me to see that, to go through that again. I've been working with the Bastrop Music Friendly Committee. We had a meeting today, and we're trying to get ready for several things that are coming up and doing our directory and our website. And that's also went to the Bastrop Music Festival meeting earlier last week, and that's coming up, as the mayor said, the 23rd through the 26th. Just wanted to mention that the Kerr Community Center is one of the venues this year, and our very own Linda Green and the Soul Teens will be performing on that Sunday, the 26th. It's a gospel brunch, and so you're all invited to come out. It's a free event, so you don't have to pay to come, but there will be soul food sold and donations accepted for the Kerr Center. And other than that, we had a committee meeting for the MLK event that we're hosting next January, and so several of us from the city and the county got together and started doing the planning process. I think it's going to be very exciting, and it will be here in Bastrop at our convention center, and a few new things that'll happen, but I think you'll enjoy all of that. Lastly, I traveled to Live Oak, Texas, a couple of weeks ago to their regional meeting for Region 7, TML, the Texas Municipal League, and it was really an enjoyable event. Their training session had a wonderful speaker, and it was their first live meeting in a long time. And so I was blessed to be there. They'd invited me to come, and I definitely enjoyed being there. But that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Crouch. It's always, or Councilmember Jackson, it's always fun to see Mary Dennis. I had Councilmember Crouch on my mind, sorry about that. All right, City Manager, we are on yours, 4C.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, you never need to worry about stealing my thunder, but I will say, as a backhoe operator, you have something in common with most of the players on the police and fire kickball team. That is, 40 years ago, we were actually pretty good at it. And before I go into the slides, Council, I want to point out an example of the work of our administration team led by City Secretary Ann Franklin. It's a guide for the folks who work at our various front desks throughout the city. It's a telephone tips kind of guide, and I've got a copy here, and I'll pass it up and down the dais for you guys to look at. Probably when Tracy's given the monthly financial report would be a good time for that. We're calling it a customer service reference guide. Right, and it's got a lot of helpful information about how to greet people, how to transfer calls, some common things that visitors want to know. If somebody wants to talk about buying a plot from our cemetery, how to go about doing that, and that sort of thing. So a lot of vetting of it, so thank you, Ann, and I'll just pass that along. So on the slides, first things we'll talk about is last night we had the first meeting of the Youth Advisory Council in at least over a year. We are attempting to restart that group with the help from folks at Bastrop Independent School District. These are high school students from each of the high schools in BISD. And so we reoriented them on what that Youth Advisory Council is all about. They have very precise bylaws and rules of procedure, and Rebecca Gleason and Candace Butts went over that. I gave them a brief overview on how city government and city government in Bastrop in particular works. A pretty cool idea we have is that as we go through the Parks Master Plan process this next fiscal year, that we task this Youth Advisory Council with the specific responsibility of overseeing that process and make sure it's effective, and that the youth in the community have every opportunity to let us know what they would like to see as we go through that necessary needs assessment process. And thank you to Dr. Christy Lee with BISD, and also Chris White, whom you know works with the Chamber of Commerce, who's an important part of this effort too, volunteered to help out, which we love Chris, and we appreciate that very much. So, Council, you will recall on July the 12th, you met in a joint session with the members of the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation, and you may recall that at the end of that meeting, you all decided to meet again, and you targeted October. We're suggesting that the City Council meet in a workshop, and Council, this is the first time you've heard this. We haven't messaged this to you at all yet, so we're not sure this fits on your calendar, but we're asking you to set aside the evening of October the 11th, that's a Monday, at 4 p.m. And the idea is that the City Council be in a position of clearly giving your economic development desires, objectives to your corporation. And so we're going to spend some time that evening. The mayor and I will meet some more to kind of plan out how that evening goes. And I'll follow up in writing. We'll include something in the weekly memo, and you'll hear something from Ms. Franklin about it. But we're asking you to save the date, if you will. Let us know if that date doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, we'll come up with another time. Colin? And speaking of City Secretary Franklin, earlier today, you all received an email from her, and I think I spoke about this in a prior weekly memo as well. We're coming up on the time where it's time for you to vote your allocation of votes for the Board of Trustees for the Central Appraisal District. And again, there's more detail about this in Ann's email from you today, including the 3 current members of the board who are eligible and willing to serve again. You don't have to nominate anybody, but if council members want to nominate someone, we will need to put that on the council agenda for October the 12th. We won't schedule that agenda item if council members aren't interested in nominating someone, but if you are, let us know. What will be on your agenda for a council meeting in December is that ultimate vote. So if you have any questions about that, let me know or let Ann know. And council, you'll remember a few council meetings ago, you heard a presentation from City Planner Allison Land about the preliminary floodplain map information we've received from FEMA, and all of that information is on the city's website. And at the end of that presentation, you heard us talk about how we would like to coordinate with Bastrop County on some public messaging, letting folks know specifically more information about what's going on with their property. And starting on September 30th, there is a 90-day period where folks can appeal those flood map delineations. And the way this is supposed to work is those appeals come to the city of Bastrop, and we administer that and we submit that package to FEMA. That's the kind of information we'll be providing at this session on Monday, October the 4th, and there you see some information about the agenda for that day. And again, we'll be doing that in cooperation with Bastrop County, and later this week we will message that out to the community and make sure they know of that opportunity. And as the mayor said, your next council meeting is a week from today, and depending on what you do tonight with your budget-related actions, we've got second reading on the budget and the vote on the tax rate, and we'll also ask you to take action on water and wastewater rates. You recall from the August 30 joint meeting with the Visit Bastrop Board, there was some discussion about amending the agreement with Visit Bastrop. We'll ask you to consider that on September 21st. And we will We'll schedule that meeting to start at 5:30, and we'll start with a closed session discussion with Chief Nagy and the city attorney on security issues relative to the city council and council meetings. And we will also ask council to consider the approval of a contract to conduct the drainage master plan that we've got programmed into the work for next fiscal year. Okay, thank you, council. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, City Manager. Council, any questions for City Manager? All right, moving on, Council, we're on the top of page 2. We do not have any work sessions or briefings, but we do have a staff and board report. We're on item 6A, received presentation on the unaudited monthly financial report for the period ending July 31st, 2021. Ms. Waldron, I am not reading the front desk guide.
I was going to tell her that
Thank
too.
you.
Undivided
She's got my full
attention.
Thank you. I guess I'll bring jokes in the future, so it's entertaining. But it's boring because it is good news, and that's why it's boring. General fund is very strong. We're exceeding forecast in revenue by 23%. A lot of that has to do with very strong sales tax as it continues every single month to be very strong. And also development fees are exceeding our budget by 1.3 as of July. Other revenue funds, I sound like a broken record. Hot funds is getting better each month though, 23% now instead of 30 last month. So each month we're closing that gap a little bit between forecast and actual. The capital bond funds, they're a little behind forecast. It all has to do with interest rates. And the debt service had a refunding transaction. So that affects both sides, the revenue and the expense. So
I think it's, Ms. Waldron, I thought it was really worth noting that August was, it was July, was the first month this entire fiscal year that they were ahead of hot funds on what
Yes.
you had forecasted. I mean, that is and I know
The first positive.
a really deep hole's been dug, but that's certainly a key turning point, and
Yes.
look forward to that.
Yes, definitely. Cemetery is a little behind. We had to buy back some plots. That's part of our policy, and we do that. We buy them back at the rate in which they were paid. So we did have several of those this year. And then all the other funds look really good to forecast. So if you have any questions for me.
Council, any questions for Ms. Waldron? Councilmember Rogers?
On the buyback, they just changed their mind. There wasn't actually something wrong with the
Correct.
plot. Okay, I just want to make sure.
They might have bought it a long time ago, and now
Oh, that's
they-
fine. I just want to make sure there wasn't a problem in the, like, in that specific
In that
slot
area or something?
Yeah.
So we
Usually-
buy it back for what they paid for it, and then we sell it for the current rate?
That's right.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Great job, Ms. Waldron, with or without jokes. You did great. All right, council, we're on item number 7, citizen comments. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone for citizen comments?
No, Mayor.
All right, council, we are done with citizen comments. We're moving on to the consent agenda. Does anyone want anything pulled from the consent agenda? Does anybody in the audience want anything pulled from the consent agenda? Madam Secretary, if you will read the consent agenda.
The consent agenda reads as follows. Item 8A, consider action to approve City Council minutes from the August 24th, 2021 regular meeting and August 30th, 2021 joint council and visit Bastrop meeting. Item 8B, consider action to approve the second reading of resolution number R-2021-66 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving a project with Mocha Ventures Nebraska, LLC, formerly known as John Botch Augers and Flighting Inc. and Project Swipe, in the amount of $900,000 for the project and providing an effective date. This concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
I moved.
Approval.
I have a motion to approve from Councilmember Jackson
Second.
and a second from Councilmember Crouch. Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion passes unanimously. Council, we're on the bottom of page 2. We're moving to the first item for individual consideration, item 9A. hold a public hearing and consider action to approve the first reading of ordinance number 21-12 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, adopting a budget for fiscal year 2021-2022, attached as Exhibit A, making certain appropriations and providing that expenditures for said fiscal year be made in accordance with said budget, updating the master fee schedule, providing a distribution, severability, repealer, and effective date, proper notice, and needing and more to include, and move to include on the September 21st agenda for the second reading. Council will have a presentation from Ms. Waldron, and then I'll see if we have any questions from her, and then we'll open the public hearing. Okay. Ms. Waldron,
Yes.
the floor is yours.
Yes, so at this point, I just want to walk you through the differences between the proposed document you got on July 27th and the document that you have in your packet tonight. So as far as on the revenue side, so there were several projects that the Economic Development Corporation discussed. They were city projects, and we did not have them in our proposed budget, though we were in talks with the Economic Development Corporation. So the 307,000, I'll highlight them a little bit later in the presentation, but those have been added. We add the revenue coming in, and you'll also see them on the expense side. On the street maintenance, so we had money in the 2018 certificate of obligation. The proposed budget was proposing to take that money and move it into street maintenance. The final discussion was that we leave that money and have it earmarked for the bridge match because we've got some outstanding grants that we're waiting on for that. So that is a change from the proposed budget. You'll see it both on the revenue and the expense side. The Economic Development Corporation had a final number for their revenue, and the difference was the 112,000. So the total change was bringing revenue down by 235,000, which gets you to your final revenue amount that's in the budget in your agenda tonight. On the expense side, we did have some changes. So community support funding, at the end of the conversations at the August 17th workshop, we actually brought community support funding down by $3,038, and on the community asset funding, we increased it by $1,119. You'll see the general CIP projects. This is the economic development funded projects for 307. And because of the removal of the transfer in from the 2018 CO, it brought our street maintenance budget down by $95,000 to keep it from going negative fund balance. So it basically brings it down to a zero fund balance.
Council, on the community asset funding that we see increased by $1,000, that was, we know what our community assets are, and we know that we added some things, but one of the things that we did take away from what staff had recommended in the first budget was funding for the Lost Pines Art Center, and the discussion was about them doing a better job in some of their reporting. And I was asked to mention to council that they, to share that they very much heard that message. They are confident that they can justify the additional funds. They are going to be jumping through any hoops we have on the reporting. And while they are accepting the fact that we changed their number now, they're letting us know that their intentions are to improve their reporting and hopefully come back and ask for additional funds to justify them, because they really would like to get back to what they had turned in as their request. And they understand that that will be at the will of council, but they wanted it to be known that they are hoping to be able to get a successful recommendation from council. Thank you, Ms. Waldron, for letting me insert that.
The rest of the changes are Economic Development Corporation. I'm going to go over this $619,000 in a future slide. And then you also have the opposite, the reduction of the transfer out of the 2018 CO series. So that brings us to the 96 million that's in the final budget on the all fund summary. So highlighting the changes in the Economic Development Corporation budget, there was personnel updates, the 2 positions that have been added, the project manager and the facilitator, or shepherd as we were referring to that position. That's your 67,771 change. Professional services, they're just carrying over the CORIC study. They had that budgeted in fiscal 2021, but don't anticipate to be able to spend that until fiscal 22. Redevelopment grant carryover of 175,000. They increased the MLK and technology by 17,000. And then here's the list of the city CIP projects. The Agnes Street, 43,000. EDC already had that in their proposed budget, so the additions are the sports complex at 50,000, the downtown lighting at 164,000, and the broadband study at 50,000.
Ms. Waldron, I would point out that it's not a sports complex that I think we can get for 50,000. It is a feasibility
study,
report
yes,
for a sports
yes.
complex, just so
It's a study,
everyone's.
not
yeah.
yeah.
I was afraid of that. No, we do not think we can build a sports complex
No.
for $50,000.
It is a feasibility study, correct.
Before you go to the next, I'm sorry, on the backside, when we talked about the downtown lighting, we talked about putting speakers in, so that's the funding.
I'm going to
for
cover
just-
that in
oh.
just a second. You're
Oh,
actually,
okay, thank
I
you.
literally am like, oh, look, Main Street program, speakers on Main Street. This was discussed, but I did not receive quotes before this final budget needed to be produced. So we are just going to monitor the quotes once we get to that point and start getting the actual final quotes for that project and see if the speakers are going to fit in. Ask the Economic Development Corporation if they're okay with, so we're going to look at that. So if we need to bring a budget amendment back to incorporate the speakers as part of that project, that's what we'll do, but it just didn't quite make the cut of the final document. And in the fire department, there was also something that came up. I've added it to the fire page, but it's just an update on them renting a small house that's behind fire station number 1, and these costs are going to be absorbed and covered by the fiscal 22 budget that's already been requested. And then the other thing is some potential legal expenditures. We did not change the legal line item, but there are some cases out there. I listed it in the staff report in detail, and this is just something that we're going to monitor as we go along, and it may require a budget amendment at some future time. And that's all I have as far as a presentation. If y'all have any questions.
Council,
for
any
me.
questions for Ms. Waldron before I open the public hearing?
No,
Member
thank you
Rogers?
for making it really, all my little points, thank you.
Councilmember Crouch?
I was just curious about the little house for rent. What the purpose of it was.
Office space. Yes, sir. And we need it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I'm just curious.
All right, council, if there are no questions, I'm opening the public hearing. If there's anyone who wishes to speak at the public hearing. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
No, Mayor.
Last chance. Anybody in the audience want to speak? All right, I'm officially closing the public hearing and happy to entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, move to approve the first reading of ordinance 2021-12.
Second?
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Nelson and a second from Councilmember Rogers. Is there any further discussion? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch.
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Council will be voting on that again for the second and final time a week from today. We'll see you on the 21st. We are moving to the top of page 3 on item 9B. Hold a public hearing and consider action to approve the first reading of ordinance 2021-13 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, adopting the tax roll, adopting the tax rate, and levying ad valorem taxes for fiscal year 2021-2022 to provide revenue for payment of budgeted municipal expenditures and providing for tax assessment, record severability, and effective date, proper notice, and meeting, and move to include on the September 21st, 2021 agenda for second reading. Ms. Waldron. Council, somebody might want to move to page 389. This item requires a very specifically worded motion, and Ms. Waldron will make an unhappy face and make us do it again if we don't read the motion correctly. Ms. Waldron.
All right. So, tax rate, just a very quick overview. We've talked about this a few times publicly. Our no new revenue rate was 54.57. We're actually proposing and asking that you adopt 57.94, which is the same property tax we adopted last year. Our M&O that we are proposing, the 0.3740, is 2.97% higher than the calculated no new revenue M&O rate. But our debt rate is going up, and as we have had conversations, this is to allow us to do a certificate of obligation to improve our streets and to put that money towards street rehabilitation. This statement is in the budget book. It's a required statement. The budget will raise more revenue from property tax than last year's budget of $727,535, which is a 13% increase over last year's budget. The property tax revenue to be raised from new property added to the tax roll this year is $298,446. We get these average taxable values from the Bastrop Appraisal District. So from one year to the next, there is an effective increase of $95,000. $95. So sorry.
You just made several people at home have a heart attack,
I
Ms.
missed
Waldron.
the point in the middle of
That's an important
yeah,
point.
It's very important. I wanted to point out that part of the new tax law that went into effect this year is a new website that the tax assessor and collector in the Bastrop County is actually managing for all the taxing entities, and it's actually very informative to go on there, pull up your property. It gives a lot of great information for all of the taxing entities that relate to your property and just all the new tax laws. One of the things that's on this website is a comment section or an ability for a taxpayer to voice their opinion on the different entities and their proposed tax rates. We just wanted to notify you that we have had 3 responses. These are the 3 responses and the comments that they provided, and just wanted to share that with you. And that's all I have for the tax rate hearing.
Thank you. Ms. Waldron, I'm just going to say for the public, particularly reading Live Within a Budget like everybody else, the revenue and the expenditures look odd because of the wastewater treatment plant and the CIP projects that we have. So it's known debt that we are taking on so that we can take care of infrastructure for the community in the future. And I think we can all agree, if you were ever going to borrow money, the interest rates are at a point that now is the best time to be taking on a long-term debt. So yes, we live within our expenditures, and we certainly take very cautiously and carefully review how we spend each and every tax dollar. So. Is that the end of your presentation? Excellent job. Council, any questions for Ms. Waldron? All right, I am going to open the public hearing. We are officially open. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone signed up for the public hearing?
No, Mayor.
All right, anyone in the audience wish to speak? I'm officially closing the public hearing, and Council, I'm happy to entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.5794 per $100 valuation, which is effectively a 6.2% increase in the tax rate.
I second.
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Nelson and a second from Councilmember Rogers. Is there any discussion or debate? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch.
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. The motion passes unanimously, and we will have a tax rate next week when we vote for the second time. All right, we are moving on to item 9C, consider action to approve the first reading of resolution number R 2021-84, the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, authorizing the expenditure of Bastrop Economic Development Corporation funds in the amount of $94,300 to enter into a professional services agreement, and that agreement's with Corex, for a wastewater study in Bastrop's extraterritorial jurisdiction, providing an effective date and move to include on the September 21st consent agenda for second reading. Ms. Young is going to make a presentation. She's our interim executive director. Ms. Young.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm going to remove this mask so maybe you can hear me a little better. What you have in your packet and what we have presented to you is a request for approval of resolution number R 2021-84, asking that you approve a contract for $94,300 for a, I'll wait for the train. The request is for $94,300 to fund a wastewater study through a professional services agreement or a PSA with Corex Utilities. The EDC approved this on August 16th during their monthly meeting, and the recommendation for approval came at that point. The wastewater feasibility study will assist the EDC and the City of Bastrop in determining the long-term requirements for sewer and wastewater in the City of Bastrop, ETJ, within the commercially important Highway 71 corridor leading from Austin to Houston. With increased commercial interest in the properties just west of Bastrop, the goal is to accelerate the process of meeting those wastewater needs. This study will help determine how to best serve the different properties within the area. This is actually allowed under Texas Local Government Code 501.103, which is a project includes expenditures that are found to be by the Board of Directors to be required of or suitable for the infrastructure necessary to promote or develop new or expanded business enterprises related to streets and roads, rail spurs, water and sewer utilities, electric utilities, or gas utilities, drainage, site improvements, and related improvements. Obviously, that's the full statute. But the amount, again, is $94,300. Anything over $10,000 that the EDC looks at for funding is required under statute 505.158 to go before City Council for approval. And that is why we are here tonight. Do you have any questions from the information that was provided in the packet?
Thank you, Ms. Young. Council, it's really important to note that this is an upfront, and so as Corex gets people connecting to their system, they will pay back the study, and the intention, what BEDC is hoping, is to have the $94,300 refunded over a period of time, and it's hard to know exactly what that period of time will be, but that is, I think that's an important part that...
Yes, and it's not to exceed 15 years, and the reimbursement would be on LUEs or living unit equivalents. And in your packet, we did describe what those would be, but the study cost is $94,300, which is $200 per LUE, which equals 471.5 LUEs.
And her comment on the 15 years is if we haven't recouped all of it, then that'll just be money that doesn't get recouped. They're not on the hook for the rest of their lives. It's a 15-year period. And the hopes are, we've talked tonight several times about the fire and what's happened in 10 years. It's hard to imagine how much things are going to change in the next 15 years. So the BEDC board is under the impression and believe that those funds will be reimbursed through the addition of connections to Corex's system.
And the study will be done by a third party, which is Kimley Horn.
Yes, Kimley Horn will be the engineer doing the study. Any questions for Ms. Young? Councilmember Rogers?
I move to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Councilmember Rogers.
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Peterson. Is there any further discussion? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Rogers?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Young. Resolution 2021-84 is approved and will be on the consent agenda for next week. We're moving on to item 9D, consider action to approve resolution number R 2021-73 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving the Viridian Public Improvement District Financing and Reimbursement Agreement, the PFA, between the City of Bastrop, a home rule city, and Continental Homes of Texas, LP, a Texas limited partnership for 399.9 plus or minus acres of land out of the Nancy Blakey Survey, Abstract 98, to the west of FM 969, located within the City of Bastrop's extraterritorial jurisdiction, is attached in Exhibit A, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents, providing for a repealing clause, and establishing an effective date. Mr. Job.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The resolution you have before you tonight, actually, if you'll recall, sorry, I went one too far. If you'll recall, in March 9th of 2021, we actually established the PID boundaries. We approved the development agreement for this on July 13th of 2021. And essentially what this agreement does is establish how the developer will be reimbursed. So as you'll see in your packet, it's got some actual exhibits of the boundaries itself, of where the major track improvements will be, along with areas that are not yet assessed, right? So, and as we move through, I don't know what's going on here, but as we move, there we go. As we move through, there's our location map. So I knew we had some slides in there. Again, the location, just to remind you, the red line is the outline for the PID area. A summary of the area, what's happened is 400 plus or minus acres. It's in the ETJ. The city does have the ability to annex. Again, we talked about this red area before. It's not actually established in the improvements that are being done as a separate property owner. And the actual assessment and apportionment of the assessment is done in the SAP, so that's not part of this agreement. The PID financing agreement, again, allows for the apportionment and the levy. It gives the terms on how that'll be done. And then the city is responsible for the actual service and assessment plan, so you'll see another item come back in the future. And what that means is, if you're familiar with the Hunters Crossing PID, and we adopt a service and assessment plan every year based on the improvements, that'll be done annually. So that allows us to, once the developer makes new improvements, we'll reassess the plan. Again, it'll be brought back here for approval, and then an apportionment of the neighboring property owners and the property owners within the PID. Some of the next steps you'll see happening here. Again, we talked about this as a draft service and assessment plan will be brought forward. It'll be reviewed and approved by City Council. Then we will do a bond issuance, right, for the improvements. And again, this is a bond that's reimbursable by these PID funds. It's not something to burden the taxpayer. The SAP, again, will be reviewed annually, and the bond issued for initial phases will be here in the future. So you'll continually see this as it develops. As we continue to develop, or this development continues to grow, we'll see constant new SAPs. And what we have here is just a staff recommendation. So it's been vetted several times. You'll notice on your, one more thing you'll notice on the dais, there were some new language changes that happened as part of the legislative session. September the 1st.
Council, this is page 25 of the agreement, which is page 443 of the packet. There's something in yellow that says, because of Senate Bill 13 and Senate Bill 19, it might need new words. Mr. Job has provided us the words that will be included in the document because it's after September 1st.
That's correct. So there has been edits to, and you'll see a slight little letter there from me. There's been edits to page, I believe, 25 and 26. Added subsection C and D to section 8.14. And we actually have copies ready to go and ready for execution at the city secretary's office as soon as this is approved.
Mr. Job, would you please let council know who all that on the city side has reviewed this document?
So not only did city staff review this, we also had our bond counsel review this, who's very familiar with the PID Act. They actually do the PID attorney work for us. We also had our PID P3, which is a sub-consultant who administers PIDs. They actually reviewed it and recommended this as a language amendment. So it's been vetted by multiple multiple folks and is ready to go.
And this is essentially putting the rules of the game in place.
That's correct.
So the SAP will be built on this. This was a result of knowing in the development agreement, we have an idea of what the layout is. So it's this the next step in the building block of the development.
It is. This is the next step, and again, you'll see in your packet the areas where they talk about the improvements. And now the public improvement plans are actually, be submitted for review, I imagine, here any minute. And that's where they'll develop that assessment once they're built. So yeah, just another step.
Council, any questions for Mr. Jobe? Councilmember Rogers?
I wanted to thank you for vetting it several times, because I know in the past we've had, PIA is not usually a good word in this council lately. So I wanted to thank you for taking the extra steps to make sure we're doing this wisely and don't hit the potholes we did the last time.
Sure.
So I look forward to it.
No pun intended, since
Yes.
it's infrastructure.
Yeah.
Council, any other questions for Mr. Jobe? I believe we have someone from Continental Homes with us.
We do. We have Tally Williams here if she'd like to speak. I doubt it.
You're all good? You guys are prepared to sign the document? Excellent. Council?
I move to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Councilmember Rogers and a second from Councilmember Crouch. Is there any further discussion? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Jobe.
Thank you.
you, everyone involved in reviewing the document. We're, to Councilmember Rogers' point, we want to really make sure that we're doing it right, and we appreciate everybody's help in making sure that takes place. Council, we have 2 items left. We're moving on to item 9E, consider action to approve resolution number R 2021-85 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, confirming board appointments of the mayor is required in section 3.08 of the city's charter as outlined in Exhibit A and establishing an effective date. Council, because each of you spends time with the charter, I know that you know that 3.08 says that folks who serve on our boards and commissions are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by council, and you are used to me doing a pretty big chunk of them in an annual basis, and so I would like to share with you my request for tonight. And Colin, are you going to do this for me? Awesome. So onward. The first that I'm ending, and council, I have tried really hard to make notes of what the term lengths are, because we know that they're different. From a statute standpoint, the Economic Development Corporation terms are 2 years, and the easy way to remember that is there's 7 places, and the odd numbers are up in the odd years, and the even numbers are up in the even years.
Do they have term limits?
They do not.
Okay, just curious.
Because the statute doesn't require term limits because it's a 2-year term. So the
Okay,
thought
just
process
curious.
is there's only so much damage you can do in 2 years, I think. So if you can get reconfirmed, you can go as long as you want. So on place 1, 5, and 7, I'm recommending reappointments. Council, those of you that were with me on the dais in 2017 remember that this council thought it was important that there be one person on the BEDC board, and it is me, and I am in place 1. And place 3, I'm recommending Jen Wall. Council, all of you were a part of the interview process, and you may remember visiting with her. She has a specific background in high tech and training. What I'd like to do is go through all of these, and then, and y'all can ask me questions by board, but there's going to be a motion at the end. We'll do all the boards at the same time. Moving to the next board, it's the Historic Landmark Commission. Place 1 is defined in the ordinance as being part of the Bastrop County Historical Society, and they made the recommendation of Shara Johnson. So that's why I'm noting that not only is she a historical homeowner, she is a past president of the Bastrop Historic Society, and she is the person that the Historic Society put forward to serve on this board. And Susan Long, who currently serves as the vice chair, is also a historic homeowner, has asked to be reappointed. I'm also making a special note that place 5 of the Historic Landmark Commission is by ordinance filled by planning and zoning. So the next time planning and zoning meets, they'll decide which one of them is going to be the representative for place 5. So I don't make that appointment, nor do you make that confirmation. It's done by planning and zoning. Moving on to the Bastrop Housing Authority, place 1 and place 3 are both reappointments. The Housing Authority is kind of a strange board for us. It is also a board that's, from a statutory standpoint, has a 2-year term. I make the appointments, you guys make the confirmation, and there ends our involvement with the Bastrop Housing Authority, because they fall under the Federal Housing Authority guidelines and rules, and that's their attorneys, and they hire their own director and all that kind of good stuff. And there are requirements of, some of them have to be residents of the Housing Authority, so we follow those rules to make sure that the feds are happy with the people that we are appointing. Moving on to Hunter's Crossing, LGC. You may recognize Lyle Nelson's name. I didn't put Mayor Pro Tem. I apologize for that. I would like to reappoint him to place 6. And with place 4, I'm recommending Christine Long. Ms. Long happens to be with us in the audience tonight. Council, you'll remember interviewing her. One of the requirements is that you be a homeowner in Hunter's Crossing, and she certainly is, and I think will be an excellent asset to that board. Moving on to the library board, for place 5 and place 7, I'm recommending Laura Goodwin. You guys remember interviewing Ms. Goodwin. She is a resident of Pecan Park. And Megan Webb, it would be the ordinance allows us to have county representatives. She is in the ETJ, but more importantly, Megan serves as the executive director for the Children's Advocacy Center. And that is a tie to a group of young people that we really want to be helping out with the library as best as we can. She also has some of her own young children, and you will recall from the interview that both Laura and Megan love the library and are excited to be a part of that. Moving on to the Main Street Board, and there are some unexpired terms, and the Main Street Board terms are normally 3 years. On place 1, I am recommending the appointment of Carrie Sneed. It's my understanding the Main Street Board approved of that. Ms. Sneed owns KC Outfitters, and one of the representations that they don't have on the Main Street Board right now is a person who owns a retail business. And so there was a desire to make sure that that representation was a part of the board. Steph Lewis is, I'm moving her from a place of being reappointed for 3 years to an unexpired term because things in her life are topsy-turvy and she's not sure how long she can do it, and that way I was trying to give her a shorter commitment. So she's being reappointed, but reappointed to a different term, and her term would end in 2022. And then based on board recommendation, I'm recommending Candace McClendon and Danny Moss be reappointed to places 6 and 9. They've been great members of the board and are looking forward to serving again. Moving on to the Parks Board, I'm recommending the reappointment of Betty Rucker. I have nicknamed her Skate Park Champion. Her application talked about she hung in there long enough that her grandkids are at the skate park. So I think there should be some sort of a reward for tenacity. Betty's been an excellent board member and is certainly a treasure for the city of Bastrop. For place 4, you may recall that we interviewed Stephen Fobert. He was a recent pickleball clinic graduate, and you will recall he's a recreation teacher and really had some interesting ideas about programming and getting kids and adults both involved. And Jamie Creasy would be a reappointment. Most of you know that she is the state park director, and I think our location with respect to the state park, it's really important that they be a part of our Parks Board and a part of our planning. Moving on to planning and zoning, I am recommending the reappointment of Carrie Kaler. Most of you know that When Carrie agreed to be on the board, she lives downtown. She has a phenomenal background in the fact that she is the planning and zoning manager for Rollingwood, Texas. So she brings a special perception and some very unique skills to planning and zoning that, according to staff and also to the current chair, Carrie is just an excellent member. I am also recommending the appointment of Scott Long. Mr. Long is also in the audience with us this evening. There is no one in Hunter's Crossing that is serving on planning and zoning at this time. And one of the things that we were trying to do in all of our boards is make sure that they were a reflection of our community from a geographic standpoint, a gender standpoint, a race standpoint, all that we can, so that when items are discussed for the community, that all of the neighborhoods are represented. This is an unexpired term. Several of you might recall that Glenn Johnson had been in this position, and when he moved to Oregon, he resigned. And I told Mr. Long, this way he's not making a huge commitment, and he can decide in a year whether he likes planning and zoning or not. But I appreciate his willingness to serve. Cynthia Meyer has asked to be reappointed. She lives in Tahitian Village. Debbie Moore lives downtown. She has asked to be reappointed. She's currently serving as a chair and doing just an outstanding job. And Don Cana has done a fantastic job. It is a very specific place 10, and some of you may think like place 10, the charter says there's 9 members. There is a very specific impact fee board representative. They need to live in the ETJ. They need it's a good idea for them to be a realtor. If any of you watched the planning and zoning meeting where they set their impact fees, Ms. Cana came with phenomenal information for a comparison of what it would take to get a septic tank in the county as opposed to getting wastewater service in the city, and really brought some unique skills, and has done an outstanding job. And with all of the items that you have to check to be able to fill that spot, I'm very appreciative of her willingness to serve that. And then finally, the last board that I'm going to talk about is the Zoning Board of Adjustments. Gary Moss lives downtown, has done a great job on ZBA, and has asked to be reappointed. And this is really the board that I'm looking forward to Mr. Long serving on. You guys may remember when we did our interview that he works for Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and dispenses of surplus materials, whether it's real estate property or equipment, which means that he gets to work with contracts and read laws, and he knows how to dot I's and cross T's and make sure that you're doing things in a legal and proper way. He's probably talked to an attorney or two on a regular basis, and we don't have anyone in Hunter's Crossing serving on Zoning Board of Adjustments. That would be a 2-year commitment, and the Zoning Board of Adjustments is by statute a 2-year commitment. So moving on, we all know that in 2017, we started having council liaisons for our boards. And I want to point out that the Ethics Board, the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and the Housing Authority boards do not have council liaisons for some very specific reasons that I think are obvious, but I'm happy to visit with if someone wants to talk about those. The other boards, we have found it's quite helpful. The city manager makes sure that each board has a staff liaison, and council, we have all assigned a council liaison. You are not a board member, but you have the opportunity to sit in the meeting, hear the discussion, so that if something comes to council and we're like, well, wait a minute, what really happened in there? We have a council perspective on that, and it's a way for us to communicate to the boards and for the boards to be able to communicate with us. I am currently serving as the council liaison to BEDC because I serve on BEDC, but I also am the liaison to the library. Mayor Pro Tem Nelson, and yes, 2 years ago it said Mayor Pro, but you are no longer Mayor Pro, you are now Mayor Pro Tem. He is the liaison for planning and zoning, and he also serves on the Hunter's Crossing Board. Councilmember Crouch, with his background, has agreed to be the liaison for construction standards, and because he does own his own business, he is going to be the liaison for Main Street. Councilmember Jackson, we know, has a tie to Parks, and he is asked to stay on as the liaison for Parks. And one of our new boards, based on decisions that we've made over the last year, we now have the Cultural Arts Board. And I've asked Councilmember Jackson if he would be the liaison, and he has graciously agreed. Councilmember Peterson has been the liaison for the Cemetery Board. There are a lot of things happening with the Cemetery Board, and he has asked to stay that liaison. And Councilmember Rogers is going to be the liaison for the HLC, the Historic Landmark Board, and she also serves as a board member on the Hunters Crossing Board. And then the slide, my favorite slide, and the one that you guys have all grown accustomed to, is out of these 26 appointments, 35% of the people that I'm appointing have never served on a board, 35% of the people live downtown, 38% of the people live inside the city limits but not in the immediate downtown, and 27% of the appointees live in the ETJ. 27% are male and 73% are female. I'm kind of disappointed because I used to be right at 50-50, but Councilmember Crouch has agreed to help me make some appointments to our Construction Standards Board, and I have a feeling my numbers will get better when I get done making those appointments. So with that, Council, these are the appointments that I'm making, and I am respectfully asking for your confirmation. And happy to answer any questions.
I vote to approve your recommendations.
I have a motion to approve from Councilmember Jackson
Second.
and a second from Mayor Pro Tem Nelson. Thank you all very much. Is there any further comments or questions?
I have a comment, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson?
I really appreciate the time and attention. I know how much time and attention and consideration you give to this task, probably more than what I would do. But the fact that we have so many new people every year to the board means more citizen engagement, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Rogers?
He stole my thunder.
You,
I was going to say exactly that, so ditto.
well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Madam Secretary, if you will call the roll.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson.
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch,
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. I do truly appreciate your confirmation. I appreciate you being a part of the interview process. And as Mayor Pro Tem Nelson mentioned, we're a better community when we have more of our citizens engaged in the process. We're moving on to item 9F, consider action to approve resolution number R 2021-86 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, reappointing Mayor Pro Tem Lyle Nelson as the General Assembly representative to the Capital Area Council of Governments, authorizing the mayor to execute all necessary documents, providing for a repealing clause, and establishing an effective date. Council, Mayor Pro Tem Nelson not only serves as our representative for CapCog, he is also on the executive committee, and he does an outstanding job of keeping an eye out on grants and taking care of us from a regional basis. And if only the charter would allow me to make a motion, I would make a motion that we approve this, but I don't have that right or authority, but I would ask you to approve Mayor Pro Tem Nelson on CapCog.
Move for approval.
I have a motion from Councilmember Peterson
Second.
and a second from Councilmember Crouch. Mayor Pro Tem Nelson, would you like to make a statement at all?
I think looking at things from a regional perspective, especially with the growth that's coming to this region, and the fact that we're able to segue membership on the General Assembly to the Executive Committee, also serve on the Capital Area Initiatives Foundation Board of Directors, and the Capital Area Emergency Communication District Board of Managers, as well as the Clean Air Coalition. So we have definitely put the city of Bastrop at the forefront of these regional groups and making sure that our voices are heard, and I really appreciate y'all's trust.
And I appreciate you keeping up with all those acronyms. Madam Secretary, if you will call the roll.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Crouch,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson,
I'm going to abstain.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. The vote passes 4-0. We appreciate that. Keep up the good work, Mayor Pro Tem Nelson. All right, Council, we are on, it says 13, but I think it means 10. Councilmember Peterson?
Excuse me. I'm making a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to
second.
adjourn from Councilmember Peterson and a second from Councilmember Rogers. It is 7:49. We are adjourned. Everyone be safe tonight. Thank you.